everyone, this is your host Prasha and welcome to Her STEM Stories, episode number 81. Before we get started, make sure that you check out our 80-something episodes. I am so proud of this show and how far it has come. It's our second happy birthday on this weekend, so please use the links in the episode notes to go ahead and register for our virtual birthday party where you will get a chance to meet me and also a couple of wonderful speakers who are going to talk about their wonderful organizations and also get a chance for a Q&A, win some freebies, a t-shirt, a tote. A lot of great things are planned, so make sure you join us this weekend for our birthday party on November 24th from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. and Eastern Standard Time, and use the links in the episode notes to join us. Today's episode is our very first ex-Mythbuster, Tracy Fanara, who is a fantastic science communicator, and her story is amazing. So keep listening.
Welcome to Her STEM Story, a podcast about real women with extraordinary science, technology, engineering, and mathematics stories. In this show, we'll talk to some absolutely inspiring women and highlight some women-led organizations in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We'll learn more about their work, their struggles, and how they think we can close the gender gap in STEM professions. Keep listening to get inspired.
Dr. Tracy Fanara is an environmental engineer and research scientist currently managing the environmental health program at Mote Marine Laboratory, where she investigates, designs, and implements strategies to alleviate man-made and natural impacts on the environment and human health. With a focus on harmful algae, stormwater quality, and hydrologic restoration, her team uses advanced technology and citizen scientists to collect scientific data while educating the public. You may have seen her on Mythbusters the Search, Animal Outtakes, Awesome Planet, or as an expert on the Weather Channel. Let's talk to Tracy to learn more about her fantastic STEM story. Hi, Tracy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, this is wonderful. So I'm so glad we connected through Instagram. So many people voted for you to be on the show. And and I'm so glad they did, because you have a fantastic profile. And I'm just so glad, so excited to hear more about all the wonderful things that you do, from being an environmental engineer to all the way to being on Mythbusters. So this is super cool.
I'm super excited to be here. You guys are awesome.
Okay, awesome. So let's get started. So tell us, first of all, tell us a little bit about what is environmental engineering.
Environmental engineering is such a broad field, but the way I like to describe it is it's pretty much the silent superheroes. They're the ones that provide the clean drinking water and take care of that water when you flush your toilet, make sure you have enough food, clean air, protect you from natural disasters, make sure that your house doesn't flood. I mean, it's all the things that we in America really take for granted that environmental engineers are responsible for.
So how did you get into this field? How did it all start?
That's a really funny story, actually. All I cared about in high school was playing lacrosse. I was just an athlete. I was captain of my lacrosse team. We went to states, and of course, I always loved science from a young age and environment. But I really picked my college based on aesthetics and the lacrosse team. So I went to Hobart, and I double majored in geology and biology. And my parents moved to Florida, and I was going uphill both ways through the snow to the field house. It was freezing. And one day I just applied to the University of Florida. Completely forgot about it months later, and my mom called me and she's like, "Oh, by the way, you didn't get into the University of Florida." And I was like, Are you kidding me? All of a sudden, that's exactly just like typical things happen. As soon as someone says you can't do something, you want it even more. So I took my transcripts and I went over to the University of Florida and knocked on every door until I found somebody. and it happened to be the chair of the environmental engineering department. And from a young age, I was exposed to environmental devastation. I learned about something called Love Canal. It was a hazardous waste dump site where people were dumping toxic waste, or industries were dumping toxic waste into this canal, and the toxins were leaching into the soil and the groundwater, and their birth effects and cancer clusters. For example, my mom had cancer at 28. My friend's mom uh, had MS at a very young age. I think she was around 30. So it was something that really hit close to home, and it made me realize that everything in this world is connected. What we put into the environment eventually comes back to affect our health. So
Mhm.
in listening to this chair of the environmental engineering department tell me what environmental engineering was, it just all came full circle, and it was like fate. It was exactly where I was supposed to be, and he accepted me right there and then. The reason why I was denied was actually because, as a transfer student, you needed to have taken physics for the
Mhm.
College of Liberal Arts. That's why I was denied. It was just a qualifications thing. Um, but that's how I got into environmental engineering, which is the a crazy story, but it ended up being so perfect. I had never even heard of environmental engineering prior.
Isn't that crazy how,
Yeah,
yeah, how little we know about so many different professions that are out there?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like they could do a better job. I think I don't know who would we should ask to do a better job, but I feel like school systems, even universities, and again, work like you do on Instagram or our podcast, these kind of things. This is one of the added benefits of what we're doing is exposing these not just diverse women but also or diverse people but also diverse careers in STEM,
Right.
which when I first started I didn't know this, and I'm like, now I look back and I go through all these wonderful people that have different careers in STEM, and I go like, wow, I had no clue someone could do this. And honestly, I wasn't sure what environmental engineering was because, as you said, it's a very wide topic. So it's
Right.
super cool for to see you in action on Instagram almost every day. Gives me so much hope that our environment is in really safe hands.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
we
at
are
least people who are studying it.
right, right. There are a lot of people making a lot of efforts, and
Yeah.
but it's really going to take community and people as a whole to come together to make big changes and really change the market. That's that's where it's going to come down to. So as much awareness
Hmm.
for i- the environment and our impact on the environment, as possible is really what's going to make the biggest difference.
Yeah, so tell us what one of us could do in our day-to-day life to make your job easy, but also to take care of the planet. If there's anything that, we kind of never think about.
Um, well, this is the one that I always go to, and it
Hmm.
depends on where you live. But for me, really, and what started me with communication and with a passion to bridge that gap between the public and scientists was realizing how much people didn't know.
Hmm.
I noticed my friends throwing garbage out their car window, and I would ask them questions. Where do you think that goes? And they didn't know or thought that it went to a wastewater treatment plant.
Hmm.
And I realized upon telling them that every single drop of water that falls on the state of Florida goes to our natural water bodies. I started seeing behaviors change. And I think that realization and of that water cycle, and your impacts to the water cycle, and the fact that there's no magic fairy cleaning your water or taking care of when that water goes into your storm drain, it's going right to a natural water body.
Wow.
It's becoming part of our ecosystem and eventually part of our drinking water.
Wow. Yeah, so we got to be very careful and, we got to think, stop and
Yes.
think before we do anything. Because I think we're just damaging the environment to a point of like no repair. Like if you look at the global warming statistics,
Right.
it's so scary.
It is, and we're so disconnected from,
Mm,
and a lot of it is just, our society in America and what we have prioritized.
mm,
But more and more as climate change, especially, the effects are impacting people on our coastlines now, but that's going to get worse and worse. And with people having to be transported, everything like that, people are going to start changing their priorities. And
mm.
unfortunately, it's going to be at a point where we already have all these problems instead of preventing them from happening in the first place, or slowing them down, rather, I should say.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but
And like disasters like what's going on in the Amazon jungle, and this whole push and pull of human versus nature is just really sad to see. And then, while we're on the topic, when we see these kind of disasters, or when we see things that we think that we're too little to contribute towards, what would be your advice to some of us who may think, okay, the glaciers are melting, I don't know how I can
what
help.
can I do?
Yeah.
Yes. And it's, when it comes to climate change and those big things, it's
Mm,
so hard to wrap your head around what contribution that you make. And the truth is, every single person really does make a difference. I mean, with our population increasing and our urbanization increasing and everything like that, you feel like you have no control
yeah.
over those big things. But the fact is, all you control is your actions. That's all you can. And so why not make make the right choice, and educate others to make
Mm,
those choices, to create a domino effect of change.
yeah. No, definitely. I think that's such an important dialogue that we need to have with our communities, but also with ourselves, and really analyze. Nowadays you see a lot of people would start sharing some of these things, which is great, and we need
Yes.
to know. But at the same time, like, are we just sharing for the just for the heck of it, or are we really stopping before we buy another big bag of um, any material that's like probably not sustainable? Or if we are throwing garbage every day, like a full like 30-gallon box, and then then we're sharing these pictures, we should our actions should reflect what we are portraying on social media as well, right?
You're exactly right. And the thing is, I didn't realize how far I was from sustainability
Mm,
until I actually tried to go zero waste, and realize how difficult it was because of how we have made our lives. I mean, you can't go to the store and buy even a lot of vegetables without plastic around them.
yeah.
It's really difficult. And the the biggest, how should I put this? The implication
Mm,
that exists is the thought that somebody else is going to take care of all of this,
yeah.
and it's not going to happen. So for me, I rapped about climate change, and it does seem like a big thing, and
Mm,
it's hard to communicate what you can do to change, because as of right now, it's really difficult to get, well, so I thought, an electric car, for example.
yeah.
um but because I was preaching it, I was like, I can't be a hypocrite anymore.
Yeah.
And so I actually evaluated my life and my budget, and I thought I couldn't afford an electric car, especially because I drive so much,
Yeah.
which actually made me feel worse every day. But because I drive so much, I needed a Tesla. That's the only electric car with the range that I needed.
Hmm.
And so I thought it was out of my budget, but in fact, you could get old ones pretty affordable. And then on top of it, all I had to do with, and especially with the amount of gas I was spending, I'm actually saving money with a Tesla. And then on top of it, I realized that I was spending money on cable and Starbucks, for gosh sakes,
Yeah.
and candy, things that I really didn't need, and getting rid of them would have, like, it does me better on top of the environment.
Yeah, and it's an incredible car. So we got to test drive it a few months ago, and I've been fixated on it. Like, I can't, like, I need to get it because it's
Yeah.
incredible, and it's just such a smart solution to such a huge problem,
Yeah.
and it's just
It's
with so much finesse. Like, wow, Like
I know, and
it's
it's so funny
amazing.
that you say that because I am not materialistic at all. Like I can care less. I buy, the clothes. I haven't bought clothes in years. I just don't care about material things.
Mm,
But when I test drove my first Tesla,
yeah.
it is the only material object that I actually really wanted. Not only did I feel a responsibility, but also, that autopilot, I'm really bad driver.
Oh,
Like, I think it's for the
good.
betterment of society.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes, yeah, some of the drivers we see, it definitely makes sense. But it's an amazing car, and I was shocked when I heard that it has a 1 million mile. It can ride for one
Right.
mile, and I'm like,
Yep.
you can't have any car that drives 1 million miles. Like even the best Hondas and stuff, they go like maybe 260, 270 at
Right.
the most. And so I am a walking Tesla salesman. If I'm selling it to everyone. Because I'm like, I can't buy it yet, but can you buy it? Can you buy it?
Right.
Told it to my boss, to my colleagues. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, and it's really a great thing. But again, we need initiatives like that, and I think we are making. It may seem like we're not making any progress because again, media and news has always it will always be uh, you know negative because
Divisive.
that's
Yeah.
just yeah that's just how that's just the content that they sell, so they're not going to suddenly start talking about all the great things that are happening in the world. But that being said, I feel like we are making progress. I think it, Tesla makes you believe that there's a better future. There are many, many other things like like Lush, like the product range. The
Right.
Lush is incredible. I never feel bad about spending that money because it's just so it's nice. It makes you feel good too, which is so
Right.
crazy because it's not making you, as you said, it's not making you feel good just because you're spending so much money. It's making you feel good because you're making you're closer to the planet. I feel like there's
Right.
a natural tendency for us to take care of the planet, and when we get to do that, we feel like we contributed, and it comes at a cost. So I feel like in the future, hopefully people can make it more affordable.
Absolutely. And it really does start with the minute that people demand
Yeah.
more environmentally responsible products,
Yep.
that's when the market's going to change. I mean, even Harley Davidson made an electric bike,
Yeah.
and it's like
100%.
incredible.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're again we're inching slowly, but I'm hoping that we are thinking about the right things at least, if not doing the right things right away.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about what's your day job and how does a day in your life look like? Because at least on Instagram, it looks like phenomenal. So I'm curious to know if that's how it really is.
Doesn't everybody's life look
I
phenomenal
know.
on social media?
True.
The one thing that I do have to say though is that I don't feel like I have a job. I
Hmm.
have a passion that I have a place to pursue that passion. Um, I run the environmental health program at Mote Marine Laboratory, and it was the lowest paying job I was offered upon getting a PhD, and I took it because I really felt like I can really change the world. I would have autonomy. I was working with people that were just as passionate about environment as I was, and they were happy to be there.
Hmm.
Um, and and honestly, I've been working there for 4 years, and this is I just can't believe I'm still loving every day I go to. I've never dreaded going to work once.
Oh, that's
Um,
wonderful.
it is, and it's unique.
Hmm.
I remember when I first graduated undergrad, and I was in consulting engineering, and on Sundays I would have panic attacks about going to work on Monday. A lot of it because there was just a lot of pressure. It was a land development boom, and I wasn't passionate. I was just trying to learn.
Hmm.
Um, and But my passion grew from that experience because I saw all the things we were doing wrong, and that's why I went back to school. So the big lesson here is that, always try to find that passion and follow it, and it's a journey. There are no age limits to dreams and goals. Like, so many people are, oh my gosh, if I go back to school now, I'm going to be so old when I graduate. You know what? Like in 10 years, you're going to wish that you would have done it.
Yeah.
But that's off topic a little bit.
That's
The
okay.
point, the point is, so in my job, I do engineering and also research. I investigate how natural and man-made chemicals impact the environment and human health.
Mm.
One main focus of my program is Florida red tide. Have you heard of Florida red tide at all?
No, but it has to do something with algae, right?
It is an algae, yes.
Yes.
So we get over 70% of our oxygen from phytoplankton. Uh, 1 to 2% of those phytoplankton are harmful, meaning that they release a toxin that can harm aquatic life.
Mm.
Well, Florida red tide is one of those species, but what makes it so unique is the toxin's ability to aerosolize, meaning that it attaches onto sea salt particles in the air. And then with winds, those particles move on shore, causing healthy people to cough or sneeze or have runny nose, itchy eyes. But for those with asthma or COPD, this can be very serious.
Mm.
And in years where so there's usually pretty much every single year there's a bloom of Florida red tide somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico, and there are things called red tide all over the world, but Florida red tide is specific to the Gulf of Mexico. But from November 2017 until I think it was around February 2019, it was 14-month Florida red tide bloom that intensified to a level that there were hundreds of tons of dead fish washing on shore.
Wow.
People were affected by the aerosolized toxins up to 12 miles inland. It was really bad. I mean, it hurt economy, it hurt recreation, it hurt quality of life,
Yeah.
and public health. So it was a really big deal. At the same time, the Florida red tide bloom intensified last late July. There was a bloom of freshwater cyanobacteria that took over a big river in Florida called the Caloosahatchee River and a lake called Lake Okeechobee. And so the two harmful algae blooms together put Florida in a state of emergency. And I just want to make a side note here. The cyanobacteria bloom, there's over 2,600 species, but there was the harmful species Microcystis present, which has been linked to a number of effects for marine life, or for water life, I should say. It's a freshwater species. So, but also now they're linking it to human health issues. So it was a pretty difficult time to be an expert in this field.
Yeah.
And for me, I was the most easily accessible. So, and there were a lot of people that were angry because they were being affected, economically or their health. And most algae blooms, like freshwater cyanobacteria, they're a direct correlation from our activities. So we build a lot, we have a lot of fertilizer, we get a lot of rainfall, it's warm outside, we're going to get a cyanobacteria bloom, and they happen all over the world. The difference is Florida red tide has been happening for hundreds of years. It is a native species. And some scientists think that they have to happen to keep out invasive or exotic species and maintain healthy ecosystem balance. But the difference is that they would be there whether we were here or not. However, when those blooms get close enough to shore, that's when our activities can impact them. So it was really difficult to communicate the difference between the two.
Yeah.
And also, I learned a lot of communication lessons during that year. It was definitely a learning experience for sure.
Yeah. So you have to be the bad cop in that time for, just to say, hey, by the way, we can't pretty much do anything. And
Right.
yeah.
Right. You're exactly right. And it was really hard. And it's so hard to, even before, in years before this very intense bloom when I was working on Red Tide, getting phone calls from people that are coming down from up north and their wife or husband has lung cancer and
Wow.
asking questions and knowing that I can't do anything.
Hmm.
So the one thing that I can do, the best way to protect the public from the effects of red tide is to tell the public where these effects are because the blooms are really patchy and they're constantly moving with currents.
Mm.
So when I got to Mote, I redeveloped something called the Beach Conditions Reporting System. I made it into a website and smartphone application that trained beach sentinels upload beach conditions, including red tide effects like respiratory irritation or dead fish, twice daily.
Wow.
And so we now have over 1 million users on the BCRS. And then yeah, it was definitely a really important tool for people during these blooms. Um, but to complement the BCRS, which was the reports were by trained beach sentinels, I wanted to empower the public and give them a voice and have them take part of this research and dissemination of information. So I
Yeah.
created an app called CSIC, CSIC, um, with another scientist at Mote. And that allows anybody from anywhere to report environmental hazards at the beach or inland.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so anywhere in the world you can report environmental conditions on CSIC.
Yeah.
And this year we're combining those two. But bottom line is that is a big part of my job at Mote.
And it
Um,
sounds incredibly interesting, important, and just innovative. So it's just perfect.
it's cool, and it does allow for a lot of innovation. Like I have a job,
Yeah.
I had a project that was led by NOAA and GCOOS, and it was a NASA funded project where we train volunteers to use a cell phone microscope
Mm.
to take a sample of water, put it underneath the microscope, and upload a 30-second video
Mm.
into an app that has an algorithm that recognizes the species of red tide. It's called Carenia brevis by its shape, size, and movement. That
Wow.
information, yeah, so it counts the cells. That information goes to a NOAA respiratory irritation model, and so we can have real time results, real time respiratory irritation predictions.
That's amazing.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
So you were saying something about communication, and something popped up in my head, and I want to ask this. You went through this situation where you were mostly wrong or not liked, right? Because something, because I work in quality, and because as a quality manager nobody calls me for good news, like it's always bad
Oh
news,
gosh, I
like
can
every day.
imagine.
Every day I'm wrong, and it was very hard for me when I first started because we love to be right, and it's just an innate need of our body and brain wants to protect us, and so being
Yes.
right is just saying, oh, you're safe, right? So, like, what was your biggest lesson through that communication challenge that maybe some of our listeners can benefit from?
I'm really glad that you asked that because just like you were saying, it was really hard. I became almost depressed. After Facebook was rough.
Wow.
But
Mm.
someone someone said to me, I was complaining about this and feeling bad for myself for some reason, and and my friend said to me, he's like, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's like, what? And he's like this is what you've been waiting for. You've wanted environment to be mainstream media, and finally it's happening. These people might be misdirected, they might be misinformed,
Yeah.
but they care, and
Mm.
environment is at the forefront of everybody's mind. And as soon as I changed my perspective on that,
Mm.
I changed my attitude, I changed how I saw the the messages that I was getting, and just realized that these people just they want a voice, they want help, and they feel helpless.
Mm.
So that's probably the biggest lesson that I learned, that it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's bigger than that. And if you look at it from afar, it's actually improving long-term process, because now things are changing. There are all these
Mm.
forces. Today I, met with an advocacy group that has become really influential in Florida, which, that never happens. But they have done such an amazing job, and it was just so cool they're going to help me with collecting data for citizen science.
Hmm.
So it's, there good things can come of all that chaos.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think if you think about it from improvement side, because one thing in our world, we call it like and continuous improvement go hand in hand. And if you always put a continuous improvement spin on everything that comes at you, it's way easier to deal with it, and you make progress faster. Otherwise, you're stuck. Like, you get
Right,
stuck in one place and nothing good comes from that. Like, that's why you got to make, even if you take like tiny steps to improve from the
right.
feedback, whether it's good, bad, ugly, you can at least, kind of make some progress, because being stuck is the worst. If you're stuck, then months, weeks pass by, and you still feel like, oh, you just dig a deeper hole, I guess.
Right.
Of course, not to say that you can't be like clinically depressed, and if you need help, you should definitely seek
Oh, right. Of course. Of
seek that.
course.
But at the same time, I feel like we take a lot of this negative feedback, or if you're in a situation where people are not agreeing with you, it's very, very hard, especially being a woman. It's always hard because you take it personally, you internalize it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's so true.
So
And
hard.
especially for me, I mean, I created something called Inspector Planet, for gosh sakes. And then
Yeah.
there was these activists that I always thought would be on my side,
Hmm.
attacking me and saying that I'm, lying or being paid off. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Trust me, if this was, if something could be done, if there was a quick fix, I would be all over it,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And in fact, with those cyanobacteria blooms, there is, I mean, not a quick fix, but my dissertation research, because of my experience in land development, was focused on hydrologic restoration, low impact design retrofit. So taking urban environments and mimicking the water cycle through sustainable designs that encourage infiltration, that natural infiltration of rainfall into the ground and soils. So for physical, biological, and chemical treatment, treating nutrients and other pollutants at the source before they get to the water bodies.
Mm.
And so, like I'm all about preventing algae blooms,
Yeah.
but if you're telling me to stop red tide from ever happening, it's just not going to happen,
It's like
you
saying,
know?
Tracy, you're gonna stop the hurricane that's coming.
No, you know what? You're exactly right. There's a hurricane coming 2 days prior, 1 day prior. We still don't know the exact track. Okay, think about all of the energy and money and effort and
Yeah.
time that has gone into hurricane forecasting. Now look at Florida red tide. Florida red tide is a microscopic organism,
Yeah.
contingent upon biological, physical, and chemical systems, on top of everything else that a hurricane has to consider,
Hmm. It's
with
very hard.
a fraction of the money and time and effort spent on it. And and the public, I understand, they want answers, but if you looking at it that way, if we can't exactly forecast where a hurricane is coming, how are we going to be able to predict Florida red tide without putting
Yeah.
more effort and energy?
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, our data stream throughout time has been so inconsistent. We can't answer, questions like, is it getting worse?
Yes.
That's something that we should be able to answer.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think your technology that you're building with the apps and your citizens project, it's just great because now you can get so much data, and I think data is, of course, it's not the future, but it's actually the present, because you
Right.
can't do anything without data. And talking about that, I feel like it's a great segue into your science communication journey. But I feel like this makes science communication even more important because, you're asking for something that's impossible with the resources that you have.
Right.
And if you communicated that, if you had better relationships, not you, but I'm saying scientists had better
Right.
relationships with the public, and the public becomes a part of the dialogue, just like you're doing, like, hey, go collect samples and become a part of
Right.
this research. And then they feel like they have ownership, but also they understand the complexity of it. And I don't think you need to go to school to understand how complex things can get.
You're
um,
exactly right.
right, because we all have that basic sense of understanding and intelligence that we can comprehend, but we need to be included in these discussions. I feel like people may, especially with weather related stuff, right, because there's not a lot of weather related education. Like, when was the last time we studied about weather patterns?
Right.
Eighth grade maybe, like, the currents and tides and stuff like that. But I feel like if we, again, just made it a little bit more educational than just saying, hey, tomorrow is going to be 70-degree weather, whatever, it'll help people understand, like, why it's so hard to tell where the hurricane's falling.
Agree with that. And
Yeah.
honestly, that's why, and you see on Instagram,
Yeah.
I love Weather Channel. I talk about them all the time, and I'm an expert guest very often. And the reason why I love them so much is because they are the ultimate science communicators. Jen Carfagno, Stephanie Abrams, Jim Cantori, they do such a great job of actually communicating the science
Hmm.
behind the weather on AMHQ. Like, they are definite role models for me, for sure.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, because I feel like, one of the channels that we've always used or had around was, Discovery or National Geography or Animal Planet and those kind of things.
Right.
But they are more broader topic. But I'm sure Weather Channel is more current, more talking about what's going on now, and people can relate to it much faster.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's
Yes.
as we go. Not everyone is playing with sharks, so Discovery Channel is there.
You're right.
Because because some of it is really a little less relatable than what you're explaining. And so tell us a little bit about that science communication journey that you're on. You've been on Mythbusters, and you work with the Weather Channel. So tell us a little bit about how that all came to be.
So when I was in college and started realizing, just like I was saying earlier about how much my friends didn't know, and upon educating them, how their behaviors changed,
Yeah.
I started thinking more and more about communication. And then all of a sudden, I don't remember the moment this happened, but I was just like, all right, I'm going to have an environmental show on Discovery Channel. Everybody tells me that environment will never be on network TV. I don't care. I'm going to make it happen. So randomly, I saw this young girl at a football game standing by herself, and I befriended her and ended up hanging out with her and becoming friends with her. And turned out that she was a film student.
Mm.
And so we got together a few years after I initially met her, and we made the first Inspector Planet video, where I was looking at water quality at a local lake, the watershed that I was using for my dissertation, actually.
Mhm.
And so that's the video that Mythbusters found. Now, before Mythbusters found me, I was talking to Discovery Studios about a couple show having my own show
Mm.
on Discovery. And I just couldn't believe how easy it was. Like, I sent my video to one person, and all of a sudden Discovery was calling me. Like, I was like, wow,
Yeah.
guess this is just supposed to be. But the thing is, those didn't pan out. And in fact, for anybody that is going into science communication, don't quit your day job. Always stick to the real science. Do
Mm.
this for fun, because 99.9% of this stuff does not work out or gets canceled. And
Mm.
it's really important that people are doing this for the right reasons. Like, for me, I'm literally doing it to share environment and science,
Yeah.
not to be on TV, because I can, care
Mhm.
less. Um, but so that's what Mythbusters found. And it wasn't the perfect fit, but my dad had just passed a couple months prior, and he couldn't even use a toaster oven. Like, he was so not building skilled. Like, he was no.
Yeah.
There's just and so I knew that he would have been so proud of me for doing that. And so that's why I actually went on that show.
Yeah.
And the awesome thing is, not only did that show give me a boost and, a platform for communication following,
Mm.
but also, I realized that, I need to go out of my comfort zone a lot more, because upon forcing myself in situations where I had to build and innovate instead of just the design and engineering that I had been doing, it gave it opened doors, like, in my mind. It broke subconscious boundaries, and I now I make every single one of my interns build something, communicate something, and do their research, because I want them to realize that the world can be what they make of it. They can create it. There's what exists, they are not limited to. So I'm really glad that I did Mythbusters.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. I think you definitely made your father proud, but you also made a lot of women proud. And it's such a refreshing thing to see good role models on channels like Discovery, because I have a personal story of Discovery Channel because I work in a factory and I grew up watching how it's made. And every
Oh,
time I go to my work, it's not the most glamorous work, but whenever I walk into the factory, I'm like lit up. Like, I'm like fireworks. Like, I love it. I love the smells. I love the sound.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just like every time those machines move, it's just perfect. And it sounds like a symphony to me because we just, we grew up like that. But I feel like it's so important to have those role models and have people like yourself who are not just passionate, but also are truly engaged with what they're doing and are doing it for the right reasons, as you said. So moving on, tell us, you have had such a great career path, so unique, and you've pivoted so well, and you're still pivoting. You're kind of like continuously like finding new ways of improving your career, but also kind of growing as a person. But tell us, what's your best piece of advice for someone who wants to follow a unique career path like yourself?
That's wow. I don't think that anybody's actually asked me that question like that. I would say to be fearless,
Hmm.
to just not worry about what other people say about your path and about the risk that you're taking with your path. I remember I was even on the other side of this when we graduated undergrad. My one friend, she went and lived in Bali and Italy, and she just traveled around, and I was sitting there like, "Oh my god, she's losing years on her 401k." And it's so funny because I just look back at that now and I'm like, wow, I don't even know who that person was for me, because I just have realized that life and a journey and following a passion is so much more
Hmm.
than making a decision when you're 18 to stick with it the rest of your life. Like, your life and your career has to evolve. You have to grow,
Yeah.
or it's going to get boring. It's going to get boring, and with science especially, you have to keep on building on top of it and innovating and creating, or you're not contributing.
Hmm. Definitely.
So I would definitely say be fearless, go outside of your comfort zone, and welcome obstacles and see them as challenges.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think that's so important because, as you said, when you're 18, 19, and you're being asked to take this huge decision of your life, and you feel like, oh my God, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, which is completely not true, because
Right.
I don't think we can find anyone who set out to do something and kept doing that. And if they did, they were probably baby boomers, because that was a generation that stuck around.
That's so true.
Not
That's
so
so
much
true.
our generation.
Right.
So again, we're all evolving. We have so many opportunities. It's a great time to pivot and learn from role models like yourself. And before we let you go, I ideally want to know, what's your favorite book?
I think, well, my favorite book growing up was Tom Sawyer.
Hmm.
he was just so free and, in nature all the time and, kind of a rebel. I really liked that book growing up. Now though, now is another question because I don't know. I definitely know that it's hold on, let me think for a second. Can we edit this and then I'll start
Of
the
course,
sentence over?
don't worry.
I try, and I know I saw the question that you sent me. I saw
Yeah.
this question. I was like, "Oh, I'll just say Tom Sawyer." But honestly, I can't remember the details of that story now to even know if that's embarrassing.
And that's
So,
okay. Don't worry, we'll edit
um,
all that.
yeah. So what is a? I know I started reading a book recently. Okay, I got to be honest with you. I haven't read a book in a while.
That's fine. That's fine too. That's honest. I love it because, and this is, it's weird because you're honest. I feel like maybe some people lie to me on this
Right.
show, but I never read 3 years ago. I never read ever. I read like 5 books in my entire life,
Right.
like Alchemist and whatever, and all the big names. And I would never read ever. I'm like, screw reading. Like I don't have time. And then 3 years ago, I was living alone in Texas, and I had like an hour drive back and forth from work, and I bought Audible. And so now I went from reading nothing to like reading 16 books one year. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to push it and I'm going to try to read 50 books next year. And so last year I ended up reading 61 books and listening mostly. And so it became a habit. And because I
Oh,
had to
okay.
read 100 books that year, no, it's not 50.
Wow.
I set out to read 100, but I only could do 61. But because I had this goal in front of me, I kept asking my guests, thinking I'll have a list of books to read. But half of my guests always said Harry Potter. And I'm like, I'm never going to read that book, like ever. Like nobody,
Right.
like you have to put a gun on my head and I may not still read it. And, so I feel like that's the original story behind the question, not to embarrass anyone, but just because it has stuck too long. But
You know what?
leave it at Tom Sawyer.
I'm so glad that you said that because I am listening to an Audible book. I was just picturing actually reading
No,
the words.
I never read.
So
Yeah, no.
so this is actually super embarrassing. So my background and story and how much into environment I am, and even some of my work with USGS was looking at pesticides and how they infect monarch butterflies and lead contamination in birds at military sites. Like I'm very into this stuff. You would think that I would have read Silent Spring at some point in my life, and and I never did. And that girl that does my video, her name's Taylor Bates. She actually sent it to me in an email like a month ago, and she said, "I think it's time." And so finally 2 weeks ago, because I have like a 3-hour drive every week, um, I started listening to it.
Good.
So I actually am reading a book right now, as it turns out, just not with my eyes.
That's good. No, that's wonderful. And I think it's just wonderful to hear your story. It gives me so much hope for our environment and that people really care for it, and then people are doing innovative things to fix it, but also doing innovative things to include the public in it, because again, just like diversity and inclusion and just like all the big things that we talk about, science communication is extremely important, because we need help from public to fix a lot of our problems, if not all. And we can't do it if they don't participate in research and engineering and problem solving, because it's just a big giant problem that we all have to solve together. And
You're exactly right.
you're doing such a phenomenal job.
As are you. Look at you bringing awareness to so many.
Thank you very much. And I think you should be the poster child for science communication.
Thank you very much for saying that.
Yes, that's wonderful. Again, thank you so much, Tracy, for taking the time from your super busy schedule and for sharing such honest and wonderful details of your life with us.
Of course, thank you so much.
And that was Dr. Tracy Fanara with her amazing STEM story. Please use the links in the episode notes to follow Tracy and her amazing work. Make sure to sign up for our birthday party this weekend by using the links in the episode notes as well. It's a free virtual party, and I really hope that I can see you there and learn more about you. If you like our show, please leave us a review on iTunes and tell us what you like the most about the show. This will help us get discovered faster and get these stories out to a bigger audience. Again, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again next week. Don't forget that our new schedule is solo episode on Monday and an interview on Wednesday. And super excited to chat with another wonderful guest next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.